Psalm 46, new psalm. Well, not new, but we're starting anew here. Okay. This, most versions of the Bible have like a preamble to the most of the Psalms, indicating who wrote them, to whom, for whatever. Now, this one is not a Davidic psalm. It's from the descendants of Korah. And the translators of the New Living Translation indicate that it's to be sung by soprano voices. I have to take their word for it because I don't know enough Hebrew to know. Anyway, so let's start with verse 1. Our God is our refuge and strength, always ready to help in times of trouble. Man, I could stop right there. And for me, the psalm is already loaded with hope. But I have to be honest and say, it doesn't always feel this way. Our refuge and strength. Do you have a place of refuge? I mean, a physical place you can go and just, you know what, if you have little kids, you don't have that place. The closest you could come would be your bed when you fall, especially moms, when you fall into bed about an hour later than you wanted to, with zero left in the tank. That's about as close to a refuge as you're going to get for a while. But still, it's a little bit of a refuge. Once your kids are older and they require less constant attention and I would just say vigilance moment by moment, then you're going to be able to find a place of refuge. For those of us that are past the raising kids stage, my question is, where's your place of refuge? Where do you go? What's a refuge about? It's about a safe place. I mean, if David had written this, he would have been primarily thinking of military refuge, and that would have been a safe battlement, a safe hiding place, a refuge. The big thing about refuge is it's marked by safe. This is a safe place. A lot of people don't have a place of refuge. Their home's not a refuge because it's filled with conflict. It's filled with criticism. It's filled with things that produce the opposite of what a refuge would. Well, even if that's you, God is our refuge. It's not a place, it's a person. Oh, hundreds of years ago now, Brother Lawrence wrote a famous book, which I don't think he believed would be famous. I just thought he was I think he thought he was just throwing out some good advice to other Christians. The title of the book is Practicing the Presence of Jesus. In that book, he shares that he worked in the galley of the monastery. That's the kitchen. And he wasn't a cook. He was a pot washer. It's a noisy, hot, pretty much thankless job. I mean, I can't imagine that many of the other monks would have stopped him and said, "Hey, thank you for washing the pots. That means so much to me." No, I mean, it's Who even thinks about that? But he learned to practice the presence of Jesus, not the idea that, well, Jesus is everywhere. No, 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 no. That his presence is here right now with me in this moment and the next and the next and the next. I'm not good at that. I'm a lot more practiced at practicing the presence of frustration, practicing the presence of being alone, having to duke this out on my own, having the presence of problems. What if, as a Christian, as a lover of God and a follower of Jesus, what if you and I chose today, from this point, whatever time of day it is, even if there's only a few minutes left in the day for you, what if you and I chose to practice the reality of God's presence with us right now? When we pray, I know this is trite, but when we pray, it's not a long distance call. When we pray, it's not a phone call at all. It's a conversation with a present, loving being, with God, who, when he looks at you and me, which he never takes his eyes off of us, in my opinion, but he always smiles. One of the prophets talks about God singing over us. All interesting concepts which make for great lyrics of contemporary worship music. But the truth is, God is here. He has not joined us. We choose to join him because he's never not been here and he never won't be. God is our refuge. It's probably about time I started acting like that. You know, I've talked about the act as if principle. What would it look like for you and I to act as if God is our refuge? It's pretty ethereal. It's pretty theoretical for most of us. If I really was acting in the belief that God is my refuge, I can tell you some things for me. One, I'd go there often. I would not wait until that was my only option for survival. I would go there often. Secondly, this doesn't mean that I'm not going to have trouble. I'm not going to have all kinds of difficulties and problems. But it means that when they come, I'm not going to panic because I have a refuge. Does that mean I ignore my problems or I pretend they don't exist? No, the problem is still there, but I'm finding refuge in God. Instead of being fully occupied, held hostage by whatever the problem is I'm facing. A second thing is I would demonstrate to the world around me a greater level of peace and even confidence. Why? Why? Well, because if God really is my refuge, and it's not like he pops in and he pops out, but he truly is my refuge all the time, wouldn't that give me some level of confidence? Way better than the level of confidence I probably find when I'm trying to take responsibility and fix this and get past it and try harder. And okay, I'm going to have to give effort. Just because God is my refuge doesn't mean, well, and you'll never have to make an effort again. Well, no. But I think one of the pieces of God is my refuge is that's what he says next. He's our refuge and strength. Now, and this is not the first time in the book of Psalms that the psalmists have written about God as our strength. I think it's mainly in reference to a spiritual strength, a strength of spirit. When the Psalms were written, there was no such thing as psychology. Today we'll think of it as psychological energy, emotional strength. Well, they would have, I think, there's only two kinds of strength in their day. One is physical strength, and the other is spiritual strength, the strength of spirit. God is our refuge and strength. I believe our strength is a result of the fact, our deep belief that God is our refuge. When I know, I'm not just hopeful, but I'm convinced that God is my refuge, that will give me strength, spiritual strength, emotional strength. See, one of the practices to get into our lives is the idea of reflecting on when in the past was God my refuge, and how did that produce in me an emotional strength. Some of the folks that are going to listen to this have been in a season of horrible struggle for a very long time. And when that happens, it's very difficult to go far enough back in your memory to that time when God was your refuge and he was your strength. That past experience gets obscured by your current struggle, your current problem, your current circumstances. I'm going to suggest you do a hard thing if you find yourself in that season. Get out a calendar, okay? I keep my calendar on my phone, so I'd get my phone out. And I would go back and back and back in my calendar until I come to a time that I realize, well, he was my refuge there. He was my strength. You need to think about that. You need to kind of remember in a visualized sense what that was like when that happened. And then think about what was the outcome. Because if we don't do that, then we get stuck in this moment with all of its troubles, with all of its trials. And they're real. I'm not saying deny them. I'm just saying don't let that be your full field of vision. Go back. Look back. And not critically, just observationally, to a time when God was your refuge. That's heavy homework. But it is also powerful homework, because the truth is God is our refuge. He is our strength, even when it doesn't feel like it in this present moment. And part of our challenge, and the challenge I'm throwing today, is learning how to act as if God is my full and complete refuge. And because of that, he is my strength. Well, that's it for today. I'll see you next time on So Care with Stevie Boy.